presentation today. As Ryan mentioned, I am much more used to talking to people in person and getting to see everyone's faces and having more of an interactive type of conversation rather than just me being a talking head for an hour. But I would like to do a little bit more at the end of a more interactive, back and forth with questions and stuff like that if we can. But as Ryan mentioned, if you do have questions throughout the presentation about a specific slide or something specific that I'm speaking about, Ryan will be monitoring the chat. I won't be able to see the chat while I'm presenting, but he's going to monitor that. So if you have any pressing questions, feel free to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So thank you to the Grimsby Library for having me and for the folks that joined us this morning. So just a little bit of an outline of our presentation today. I'm going to introduce myself and a little bit of background about me. Who is the NPCA and what do we do? Some of the recreational opportunities, some of the really outstanding natural heritage features that we have here in this area, and some volunteer and partnership opportunities. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from Niagara College's Ecosystem Restoration Program and from Brock University with a Bachelor of Environmental Science, and started working with the Conservation Authority as a summer student in 2007 and stayed in the restoration program up until 2014. In 2014, I changed roles and am now in my current role here doing community outreach. So my role is to be a liaison between the NPCA, community groups, volunteers, partners, things like that. I sit on advisory committees on behalf of the NPCA, attend community events, attend partner meetings and information sessions, and I lead some of our community outreach programs, including the Yellowfish Road program and our Mickey DeFrugio Legacy Pollinator project. So who is the NPCA? So we were established in 1959 under the Conservation Authorities Act. We have a watershed that is roughly 2,500 square kilometers, serving approximately 500,000 people. We're governed by a board of directors, and we are primarily funded by municipal tax levies from Niagara, Hamilton, and Haldimand, though we do get some provincial funding and outside grants and things like that. So as some of you may know, our watershed is not bound by municipal boundaries. We are watershed based, as are all the conservation authorities in Ontario. So part of our jurisdiction covers a little bit of Hamilton and a little bit of Haldimand. And if you're wondering what the heck a watershed is, we're going to talk about that. So basically a watershed is an area of land where all the water, when it rains, flows downward and goes into the lowest part, a river, a lake, and it incorporates both above and below ground. So in Niagara, we have three watersheds. So one that drains to Lake Ontario, one that drains to the Niagara River, and one that drains to Lake Erie. And then the water in Lake Erie drains into Lake Ontario through the Niagara River. So the NPCA mandate, I don't need to read this out loud for all of you, but basically we undertake programs on a watershed basis that further conservation, restoration, development, and management of natural resources. And this can mean many things. So some of the things that we do include managing 41 conservation areas. We do water quality monitoring, flood forecasting and warning, permitting, restoration grant program, fundraising events, educational programs and camps, and working with partners to further common goals. Why do we do this? For clean water, drinking water, recreational opportunities, healthy ecosystem, to protect species at risk, provide recreation opportunities for the community, and because we are provincially mandated to do so. So some of the recreational opportunities that exist, we have 4 of our flagship more active parks that are gated and that we have staff at always. So Balls Falls Conservation Area, Benbrook Conservation Area, Chippewa Creek Conservation Area, and Long Beach Conservation Area. These are likely the conservation areas that you are familiar with when you think of the NPCA. These are most popular ones. And as some of you may have noticed, many were closed and at capacity at many points during this year. So this is an example of our more popular parks. So this is Balls Falls in the photo. So recreational opportunities at some of our passive parks include exploring, hiking, photography, fishing, swimming, reading, biking, family picnics, and nature appreciation. So these are some of the things that people can do when they go out to our parks. We did have to push a little bit this year to try and get people to kind of spread out beyond those popular parks and explore some of the little bit lesser known parks, because like I mentioned, we were at capacity at many of our parks. This year seemed to be the year that people really needed nature and to get out there and get outside and get some fresh air. Kids need nature now more than ever. Right now, they've spent so much time with online learning and just having to stay home and get away and be away from their friends and things like that this year. And I just really want to point out that outdoor education doesn't just have to be taking a field trip with a class or taking your family to a trip to Balls Falls for the day. Nature's everywhere. It's all around us. So when you're driving, when you're walking in your neighborhood, you know, stop and listen to hear if you can hear some birds around you, and you know, check out the trees that are in your neighborhood and look for those little hidden gems. Most municipalities, most communities have these little hidden nature areas nearby that you don't always have to drive to get to. You just have to go searching for them sometimes. And learning to observe and record the things that are around you. Starting a nature journal is something that is a great concept for kids and adults alike, to kind of go out in the different times of the year and see what's growing and what's changing and what's out there in terms of birds and things like that. The photo here is a picture of a mourning dove nest that we found in our yard this year, and my daughter was just super interested in this mourning dove nest, and so it led to a whole research project about mourning doves and how they always typically lay 2 eggs and how their nests are not the best built nests that you'll find. So, you know, this sort of learning about the things around you that are right in your backyard, instead of just always thinking that you need to go out somewhere to do a hike or to experience nature. I have a little note here about risky play. So I've been doing some reading lately and chatting with some of the folks that work at our Balls Falls site in our education programs. And risky play is something that's important for kids, and getting out there and climbing the trees and you know, doing the things that sometimes give us parents a little bit of a jolt when we see them doing it. But I read that you should always wait about 10 or 15 seconds before you tell your kids to stop doing something, unless of course it's, you know, very dangerous. But let them, you know, try to climb the tree. Let them, you know, get out there and walk across a log, or you know, do something that you might feel is a little bit risky, but it gives them confidence to know that it's something that they can do, and that's okay. And as I mentioned before, go beyond the public park. Look for those little hidden nature gems in your neighborhood. Do note that you should always make sure that it's not private property, that you know, there's not those no trespassing signs and things like that. One really good way to find these little hidden gems is to speak with a local nature club or conservation authority or one of the friends of groups, because they often know the best places to go in the neighborhood. So kids aren't the only ones that need nature. We all need nature. So things that are scientifically proven reasons that we need to get outside include the improvement of short-term memory, restored mental energy, stress relief, better vision. When you're staring at a screen all day, your eyes aren't getting any exercise at all. When you get outside, your eyes are constantly focusing, just like the lens of a camera, changing focus depending on the depth that you're looking at. And so that is sort of a way of exercising your eyes. Too many of us spend way too many hours in front of a computer screen or in front of electronics every day. So this is something that we really need to do better. More creativity, it's better for your immune system, and that mental health aspect is super important, as I think many people realize this year. So some of our parks that I mentioned are very well known. Balls Falls Conservation Area. And I should point out that some people have been noting lately that there's no water going over the falls, and this is typical this time of the year. If you would like to see water going over the falls, your best bet is to go in the spring. This time of year, we often have very dry, trickles going down the falls, and so you don't get that spectacular view that you do in the spring. Some of these photos are from our annual Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival, which this year is not happening the way it normally does, and it's more of a virtual online vendor sales and things like that. But our Heritage Village is open, and we're doing ticketed tours of the Heritage Village here at Balls Falls. We do weddings and corporate events up at the Center for Conservation and in the barn at Balls Falls. And we have educational camps and programs that run. We are guessing that we're not going to get too many kids coming through the educational programs this year. Many schools have stopped doing field trips so far, but we did have a camp running this summer, and engaging kids in learning outdoors, and most of their time at camp is spent outdoors, and they learn about the local environment, the ecology. They learn things like survival skills and fire building and stuff like that, and then also information about the heritage of our site. Binbrook Conservation Area is a conservation area that if you're looking for a little bit more active recreation, there are lots of opportunities there, obviously depending on the time of year. But we do have treetop trekking there has been there for the last couple of years, and wakeboarding, and this fun splash that was in the lake. If you're looking for more passive recreation at Binbrook, I suggest the Tyneside Trail. So Tyneside Trail is maintained completely by a volunteer group called the Glenbrook Conservation Committee, and we are just out at Binbrook this Saturday planting some trees in a newly acquired parcel of land that was previously farmland. And the GCC is very, very active and have been advocating for this type of thing for many, many years. And so we planted some 300 trees there through a TD grant that was acquired by Earth Day Hamilton Burlington on Saturday. So 300 trees got a new home, and the Glenbrook Conservation Committee are quite happy to see this addition to Binbrook. Long Beach and Chippewa Creek are the conservation areas where you can have camping opportunities. So we have both electrical sites and more passive camping with tent camping and the non-service sites. So those are two local opportunities for camping if people are looking to get out one more time before the end of the season. Again, Long Beach was very popular this summer, so we did have to close it a few days because we are over capacity, as it does have access to Lake Erie. So natural heritage in our backyard. We are so lucky to live where we live. We have so many amazing natural heritage features here that I could go on and on and on about it. This is a map of our conservation areas. The little green dots are all of our conservation areas, and I just wanted to point out a few that are, not everybody, but most people have heard of Balls Falls and Rockaway and Long Beach, but some of the more lesser known ones, Rugarok Track is a lovely little area, the Headley Forest over here in Haldimand. Mountain View is a nice escarpment property, so is Cave Springs, as well as Louth, which is in between Balls Falls and Rockaway, and it's not as popular. So if you're driving to Balls Falls or Rockaway on a Saturday and you find that those parks are pretty full or at capacity, or the parking lots are full, drive over to Louth. It's beautiful and has some lovely trails as well. E.C. Brown Conservation Area along the Welland River is an area where we've done a wetland restoration project, and it has some nice walking trails through there. So just kind of thinking a little bit beyond some of the parks that you would normally visit. But this is the natural heritage conservation areas that are managed by the Conservation Authority, but certainly there are many more natural heritage areas in Niagara. So that these little gems of nature can be found anywhere. most municipalities have these lovely little trails and parks. So the Shagbark Trail is an example in Fort Erie. Malcolmson Eco Park in St. Catharines is a beautiful area, and there's a very active volunteer group that maintains that property in collaboration with the City of St. Catharines. The Lathrop Nature Preserve in Pelham is owned by the Nature Conservancy of Canada, and it is a beautiful, beautiful spot to go for a hike, especially in the fall when all the trees are changing. There's lots of Carolinian species in that forest, so if you're looking at to go find sassafras and tulip trees, that's a really lovely place to check out. Louth Conservation Area I mentioned before. Mud Lake in Port Colborne is another nice one, especially in the fall. Just be careful or be aware that when you go there, there are hunting opportunities there as well. So just be mindful of hunting seasons and things like that. Morgan's Point in Wainfleet. This is a really nice gem, I should say. This one is along the shores of Lake Erie again. It's a lesser known park, but it's beautiful. And like I said, it has lakefront access, and there's a nice pollinator garden there that's maintained by some of the local volunteers, and it's just a really, really nice place to visit and go for a walk. And Baden-Powell Park in Niagara Falls is another one that's kind of not as well known, but that has had some really interesting restoration work done there over the years, and it's a nice area to get out of the city and go for a walk. So the city of Hamilton and the Niagara region have over 100 waterfalls and cascades. And as I mentioned, if you're looking for those things, the spring is the time to go. This time of year, you might not see much going on. The Niagara Escarpment is UNESCO designated. It's a huge natural heritage feature here in Niagara. It's home to many species at risk and unique species to this area. The Bruce Trail System is another unique thing about the Niagara area and our watershed here. The Carolinian Life Zone. So this bottom map, the green area is the Carolinian Life Zone, and this is an area that has really unique species in Ontario. It's one of the most southern part of Ontario, and it's home to species that you don't find anywhere else in Canada that are typical of the Carolinas. So you get those sassafras and the tulip trees and the flying squirrels and things like that. So 125 species in Carolina and Canada have species at risk status. Over 400 species in Carolina and Canada are considered rare. The other unique thing about this area is that there's such a wide variety of different ecosystems, and we learned this through our natural areas inventory project a few years ago. We get beach and forest and swamp and meadow and alvars and open marshes, and you get to really see this interaction between people and nature in a way that shows that we can do this together. That we have agriculture here, we have areas that are more urban and more rural, and you know, you can drive 20 minutes and see 3 or 4 different types of ecosystems, which is pretty unique, I think. The Niagara River, the Welland River, and Niagara Falls are, of course, some of those natural heritage features. I mean, Niagara Falls is something everybody's aware of, but the importance of the Niagara River and the Welland River historically are hugely important here. And 12 Mile Creek, which is the only cold water stream here in this area, which supports populations of the endangered brook trout. And that's another unique feature here. So this is a map showing the Niagara Escarpment. So many people know that the Niagara Escarpment is here, but a lot of people don't realize just how long it actually is. So it starts in the US and runs all the way up into Tobermory and then continues along around Lake Michigan. So it's a huge, huge natural heritage feature. And then we have the Bruce Trail, which runs 890 kilometers long and runs all the way from here to Tobermory as well. And so this is a trail that is maintained solely by volunteers, and there's 400 kilometers of side trails as well. So in the photo on the bottom here, you see the white and the blue marks that are on the trees, and that helps you know which trail you're on. So the white trails are the main trails and the blue trails are the side trails. And the Bruce Trail Conservancy has great maps on their site if you're ever looking to hike a part of the trail. They have a badge system where you're, depending on which parts of the trail you hike, you can get different badges and things like that. So it's a great thing to do with a family or on your own. The Niagara River, I mean, this photo speaks for itself. Such a beautiful area. The water is amazing, and the so many unique species and natural heritage features here with the geology of the rocks and all the history here. The Niagara Peninsula Aspiring Global Geopark. So there is an active group here in Niagara that is working to get this area designated as a global geopark through UNESCO, similar to the designation that we have for the Niagara Escarpment. The name Niagara has Indigenous provenance, and the Niagara Peninsula has been home from time immemorial to many Indigenous nations and continues to this day to be an iconic gathering place visited by people from nations around the world. So geoparks are designated for areas that have geological significance, as well as a marrying between humans and the natural world, where things are so things like tourism and ecotourism, things like that are really important in a geopark. And so this group is actively working to get Niagara designated as a geopark, and they're getting there. We're in the application process, and so right now we're considered an aspiring global geopark, and there's some information there if anybody's looking to get more information about that particular aspect. So this again just shows the uniqueness of the Niagara area and how lucky we are to have these things right in our backyard. Volunteering is a great way to connect with nature, especially if you're somebody who's not yet comfortable with nature, like not comfortable going out on a hike by yourself, or not comfortable taking your family or something like that. It's a good way to get out there and connect a little bit and gain some experience from those around you. Often when you're out at a tree planting or something like that, you can connect with some of the local nature groups and community groups that can help you build a little bit more of that confidence and expand your connections. There are many options for volunteering with nature. So some of the Friends of groups that I mentioned, the Friends of Malcolmson Park, the Friends of Walker's Creek, Trout Unlimited, there's many community group options here in Niagara. We have a lot of nature clubs, both in Niagara and in Hamilton, and Haldeman, that are always looking for new members, and often they plan hikes and speaking engagements and things like that, so you can go and learn from people that have been doing this for many years. We do typically have volunteering options with the NPCA and even corporate groups. So this picture was just taken a couple of Fridays ago. This is Aviva Insurance came out and they did some maintenance on a pollinator garden at one of our conservation areas as part of a corporate team building volunteer day. So lots of different options. And these are just examples of some of the volunteer opportunities that we have at our various conservation areas. And many of these are taken from a year in which we did not have COVID. So the volunteer opportunities were a little bit more expanded than they are this year. However, anything from the heritage tours at Balls Falls to volunteering at community events. This is Andy from the Glanbrook Conservation Committee that does volunteer work at Binbrook. As I mentioned, they do work to improve habitat and maintain the trails. Again, this is the Glanbrook Conservation Committee maintaining some trails. We've got tree planting with scouts. These two gentlemen down here, I believe Howie is maybe here in this presentation this morning. This is Howie and Mark, who did a lot of work maintaining and building, fixing the bridges on some of our trails at Balls Falls. They've done a tremendous amount of work at Balls Falls in the last few years, just helping with any projects around the park. And then we also have some ecological monitoring type of volunteering opportunities. So this is Dara and Steve, who've been monitoring the wood duck boxes out at Mud Lake for many, many, many years, even before my time at the NPCA. This is a group for Yellowfish Road, where they go out and paint yellowfish next to storm drains with the words rainwater only. This is a Trout Unlimited program that is run Canada-wide. We are the local coordinators here in Niagara, but they do these projects all over. So that is a very fast version of my presentation. I'm used to having, like I said, a more interactive conversation. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or if anybody has anything from the chat. Brian?
Oh yes, Kerry, you can check the chat if you want. There's a question from Ian Lucas. So I don't know if you want to open the chat, or I could read it out loud to you.
I'm trying to see what. I don't see anything in the chat except for the one that you.
Oh yeah, I think actually I noticed Ian just sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
So I'll read it. I'll read it out loud here.
Sure.
So Ian's question is, could you please elaborate on the difference between a UNESCO Global Geopark and the UNESCO Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Reserve?
Ian, I might throw that back at you. So the UNESCO, so this is going to stump me a little bit. The UNESCO Global Geopark is a designation that is specific to tourism and ecotourism in particular, and the significance of the geology of the area. The UNESCO Biosphere Reserve is a place where humans and the environment interact in a way where there's a significant environmental feature, such as the Niagara Escarpment. I think that's right. Ian, you can correct me and turn on your microphone if I've got that wrong.
Hi, Kerry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that the big difference in that's important to talk about is there are restrictions on development within a biosphere, whereas in a geopark there are no restrictions on development, but there's an encouragement towards sustainable tourism based on the ecology, based on the geology, the history, indigenous history in particular. So it's quite a bit different, but sometimes people tend to sort of lump them together. So they'll say, oh, well, it's, there's a biosphere reserve and we're also going to get a UNESCO Global Geopark, as if it's the same thing, but they're quite different, really.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. Are there any other questions? I'm not sure how how this works, but if people wanted to turn on their mic and ask a question, or put them in the chat, that's fine with me as well. Or I'm interested to know if people that are on the call can share about maybe like a hidden nature gem that they know of in their area that that's open to the public that people can visit. I know one. I live in Welland, and in the municipality of Welland, we have the Woodlawn Park that they create a little ice rink in every year in the winter, and I think it's lovely to be able to go out and skate in a forest in the middle of winter. So that's kind of a little thing that not a lot of people know about unless they live in Welland.
Yeah, so people can feel free to turn on their microphone or their video if they want. I see George has raised his hand, so maybe George, if you wanted to ask a question, go ahead.
I will, thank you. Kerry, nice presentation. You talk about hidden gems and so on. The salmon fish will start running in a couple of weeks too. I don't know, you didn't touch on that. So I would think that probably 99% of people that live in Niagara have no clue to go and watch the salmon as they go and spawn, lay their eggs. So just a thought, we go up just below Balls Falls, we take the entranceway as part of the Bruce Trail. And it's just really neat to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of salmon. They're probably about a third of a meter long. They go up there, lay their eggs, and then of course they die on the way back.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you. That's a great thing to point out this time of year for sure. Thank you.
Is this, Bill Octorloni here, is this presentation available to review after this morning?
Like like, is it going to be available to share?
Well, just I'd like to go over it a couple of more times.
Oh, sure.
Really,
Sorry.
I think it's an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
There's so much in it. I just would like to go through it a few more times just to make sure that I'm a little more cognizant of what's there.
For sure. I don't think there'll be any issue with me putting it into a PDF and sharing it with the participants if Ryan has everybody's contact information, or if you want to just send me an email and I'll send you the PDF, that's fine too, whatever's easiest for everybody. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kerry, with your permission, we could also post it on the Grimsby Library's YouTube channel, but that's up to you. We could talk about that later. But
sure,
that's another option.
I'll have to check. I don't think there'll be any issues with that, but I just would have to check first.
Sure. So there's a couple other questions in the chat, and it looks like they would be ones you could see yourself.
I can see them now. Okay. Sir.
One from
Carla.
And
hi, Carla.
Lorenzo.
How can I become involved? So I'm assuming she's maybe speaking to the geopark.
Yeah.
Carla, are you? Hi, Carla.
Hi.
Long time no see.
I know, eh? Well, now I see you now.
So I would think that there's certainly. Have you been connected at all with the geopark yet?
Well, I've been to tourism meetings going back many years, but nothing's ever connected. So no, not really.
Okay, well, I'm happy to put you in touch with the folks from the geopark. I think Ian's on this call, and maybe Darren as well. So that's certainly something that that we should explore further. You know, we've had chats before about some of the aspects about the conservation areas and tours and things like that. So certainly there's further conversations to have there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then someone else, Lorenzo, hi Lorenzo, asked, does the NPC have a working relationship with Tourism Niagara? I believe we do. It's not myself that's connected, but I know that we have a staff member that is a board member on the 20 Valley Tourism Association, and I believe she is also connected with Tourism Niagara, but I could double check that. Do you have a specific connection there, Lorenzo? Someone we should touch base with? Oh, is Lorenzo
Sorry,
still...
no,
oh.
I didn't have a specific. I was just curious whether you had an MOU or some kind of relationship with Tourism Niagara.
Yeah, I will look into.
Sounds like you do. It's just.
I think we do. I think we've been part of. There's a new group that's like a tourism task force type of group that has been connecting every week for the last little while. So I believe there are some connections there.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks. And then just somebody else asked about the presentation. And thank you, Ian, because you said you could connect directly with Carla. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Sorry, I may have gone through it really quickly. I'm used to, like I said, having more of a back and forth conversation. So if I was talking too fast, I apologize. Tom has a question.
No, it was great.
About the watershed areas. Yes, Tom.
Hi, Kerry. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom. Yep.
So my question is, I'm surprised that it goes well beyond the borders of the Niagara region and into other regional areas. But what struck me in that one visual that you provided was that There's a large section of the watershed flows to Lake Ontario. That makes sense to me. And another larger portion goes to the Niagara River, which surprised me. And it's also surprised me that there's such a small area that goes to Lake Erie. And of course, that must have to do with the geography of the area and lower areas versus
That's
higher
right.
areas.
It's all, yeah, topographical and just, you know, the slope of the land and all that sort of thing. So the area in the middle flows to the Welland River, and then the Welland River takes the water to the Niagara River.
That's interesting for me too, because I'm right next to the Welland River here in
Oh,
Welland.
excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want me to pull that slide back up, Tom?
Sure.
Um,
Whatever you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
That
That's
was one
an
of the
old,
few
we've had
ones.
this map for a long time, and I always like it. It's a good visual for people. So
So
that's
how far back does the Welland River go?
so when we were in Binbrook, so Tom was one of the volunteers that helped us plant trees on Saturday. When we were in Binbrook on Saturday, this is Lake Neopenco here in Binbrook. So the Welland River starts just west of that.
So I read something about Lake Neopenco that it was created down one end to help control the flow of water in the Welland River.
Yeah, so there's a dam there in Binbrook. Yep. And so it's a man-made lake. It's not a natural lake.
Right. And how does that control or help control the flow of the Welland River?
You are
How old is
asking the
that?
wrong person. I would be happy to put you in touch with some of our staff that are the ones that are more responsible for the dam. I'm not sure what they use as a gauge of when the dam is like what the water levels are and things like that. I would have to ask one of our
Yeah,
more
that's
technical
fine.
engineering type staff. Sorry about that.
Do you know how old that lake is? When it was created?
I should know that off the top of my head. It was probably in the early days of the Conservation Authority, so probably in the
Back in the 50s or early 60s?
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the, I had a great time at the tree planting. Everyone do it.
Great. I'm glad that we got those trees in the ground. Any
Kerry?
other question? Yep.
This is Carla.
Hi, Carla.
The other day I did a tour for the Willowbank School of Restoration. And
Yes.
there was a young fellow who told me a few stories. He lives in West Lincoln. He talked about that dam, and I didn't understand what he was saying. He talked about Binbrook, a dam, something to do with the Welland River and the Niagara River. So now I can see what he was talking about.
Okay.
But he said that the regulation of it is such that when people who are employees move the dam the way they need, like open and shut the dam the way they need to, that it floods the farmers' fields so badly that the farmers are very unhappy, and that people literally skate in the winter on these flooded fields because of all this water being gushed across the land. Anyway, it seemed so wrong to me as he said this. It was just, hearsay from him, but he's a local boy that's lived there forever. So I just thought I should mention that, and then maybe somebody could look into it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's that's something I don't know a great deal about, but I'd be happy to put you in touch, or maybe we can connect that individual with the staff, so that they can voice their concerns with them and see if we can come up with a solution there, because that does sound troubling.
Yes. Okay, great.
So there's an interesting fact from Ian in the chats. I had never heard of this. The Onondaga Escarpment controls the relatively minor flow into Lake Erie as far as watersheds go. So yeah, kind of a fun fact there.
Yeah, the Onondaga Escarpment is definitely not as well known as the Niagara Escarpment, that's for sure, but certainly an important feature there.
So if no one else has any questions, or feel free to get in a last question here before we end the presentation. But just in general, I'd like to thank Kerry for doing this presentation online and giving it a go, and everyone else for attending. It's really nice to make these kind of presentations interactive and with the questions and everything. So we probably will have a recording somewhere, if maybe on our YouTube channel. But yeah, it doesn't look like there's any questions.
Sure.
Comment from
Nobody's willing to share their nature gems from their neighborhood. They don't want anybody else to know about them. I get that.
Exactly.
I get that. Excellent. Well,
Anyway,
thank you. But
I've gotta
they do
run.
exist in every neighborhood. You will find some sort of nature trail or something, and it's important to get out and know those areas for sure.
Truly. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. I guess we'll end the meeting here, and have a great day, everybody. And thanks again, Kerry, for doing this.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So, sign off here.